You've made it to the end of the module, which means you've covered a lot of ground. Ethics, bias, misuse risks, AI limitations, the future of the field. You understand how these systems work at a structural level. You have a vocabulary for discussing risks that most people in the industry can't quite articulate. You know what makes a prompt engineer valuable versus someone who's just using AI casually. And here's the uncomfortable truth that sits at the end of every good course. What you know right now has a shelf life. Not because the fundamentals will change. The core principles of good prompting, context engineering, ethical practice, domain expertise, those endure. But the specific models, the specific tools, the specific benchmarks, the landscape of what's possible, that changes fast. Faster than any single course can track. Faster, honestly, than most professionals in the field stay current. The people who maintain a genuine edge in this space don't do it by taking courses. They do it through a continuous practice of learning that becomes part of how they work, not something separate from it. This final lesson is about building that practice, where the most valuable learning actually happens, and how to find it. What certifications and communities are worth your time? How to build a portfolio that signals genuine skill rather than just familiarity? And what the actual career landscape looks like for people with your expertise in the years ahead. Think of this as the operational plan for sustaining everything you've built in this course. Let's make it practical. There's a lot of content about prompt engineering on the internet. Most of it is low quality. A lot of it is outdated. Some of it is wrong. Knowing where the signal actually lives is itself a skill. Let's start with primary sources. The research that matters most in this field comes from AI labs directly. Anthropic, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and academic researchers working on language model interpretability, evaluation, and alignment. Their papers are publicly available, and they're highly readable, especially the applied ones about prompting and reasoning. The key repositories to follow: Anthropic's Model Card and Research Publications page, OpenAI's research blog, the arXiv preprint server under the categories cs.cl, Computation and Language, and cs.ai. These are where findings surface before they reach blog posts and YouTube explainers. One important habit: read primary sources before you read commentary about them. The commentary layer is where the most distortion happens. Findings get simplified, overstated, or stripped of important caveats. Read the actual paper first, even the abstract and conclusion, before you read anyone's take on what it means. Secondary tier: high-quality, practitioner-oriented writing. A few sources consistently produce accurate, technically substantive content without the hype. Simon Willison's blog, one of the most reliable ongoing commentaries on AI model capabilities and practical prompting from someone who actually tests things thoroughly. The AI Alignment Forum for deeper technical and safety discussions. Anthropic's recipes and Claude's official guidance documentation. OpenAI's own prompt engineering guide, which is well maintained. Twitter and LinkedIn surface a lot of content, but the signal-to-noise ratio requires calibration. Follow researchers directly, the people publishing papers, rather than the larger AI influencer accounts that primarily aggregate content. The researchers see what's actually happening before the commentators do. The highest leverage learning habit, though, isn't reading about models. It's running experiments on them. The gap between knowing a prompting concept and having genuinely internalized it is almost always bridged by logging into a model, designing a test, and seeing what happens. Hands-on experimentation compounds faster than content consumption, which connects directly to the question of communities, because the best experimentation happens in environments where people are sharing what they actually tried and what actually worked. Certifications in AI and prompt engineering exist on a wide spectrum, from rigorous, technically substantive credentials attached to specific lab ecosystems to marketing-forward certificates that mostly validate that you completed a course. The most credible credentials right now are the ones attached directly to the AI labs themselves. Anthropic's official certifications, where available, Google's AI Professional Certification track, which covers language model usage within the broader Google Cloud AI ecosystem. Microsoft's AI Engineer Associate certification through Azure, which includes substantial language model and prompt design components. These matter not primarily because they prove a specific skill level, but because they signal that your knowledge is current, lab-aligned, and verified within a framework that many enterprise clients and hiring managers recognize. In practical terms, they're trust shortcuts in contexts where the hiring side doesn't have deep technical expertise to evaluate you directly. Below that tier, community-verified competence often matters more than formal certificates. The quality of your work visible in public places, GitHub repositories, public prompt libraries, documented experiments, case studies, carries more weight with technically sophisticated evaluators than any certificate does. Communities worth active participation in: the Anthropic Discord server and official community forums. Hugging Face's community, not just for models, but for the extraordinary breadth of practitioners who share work there. Reddit's machine learning and language model communities, particularly r/local llama. And LinkedIn, used intentionally, following actual researchers, contributing substantive commentary, being visibly engaged with the ideas rather than just the hype. The most valuable community relationships aren't passive subscriptions. They're the ones where you're contributing, sharing what you've tested, asking substantive questions, helping others debug their prompts. Active participation compounds your learning faster than observation alone, and it builds the professional visibility that generates opportunities. Resources and communities give you the ongoing learning environment, but how you demonstrate that learning to people outside your immediate network, that's where a portfolio comes in. Portfolios for prompt engineers are unusual compared to portfolios in software development or design. You're not showing off code you wrote or visuals you made. You're documenting something more abstract, a decision process, a series of inputs and outputs and the reasoning that connected them. Done well, a prompt engineering portfolio is one of the highest signal professional credentials you can have, because it's harder to fake than a certificate and more specific than a job title. Here's what a high-value portfolio entry looks like. Start with the raw prompt, the initial version you wrote when you first tackled the problem. Don't show just your best work. Show where you started. Then show the version history, the refinement sprints. What changed between version 1 and version 3? What did testing reveal? What did you fix? Why did you fix it? And what did the fix accomplish? This is the thing most portfolio builders skip, and it's the most valuable part, because it demonstrates judgment and process, not just outcome. Then, the output comparison. What changed between the early prompt and the refined one? Show the actual outputs side by side. Don't just claim it got better. Demonstrate what better looks like in your specific use case. Then, the impact statement. What was the real-world value of this work? This reduced the time required for specific task from 4 hours to 20 minutes. This eliminated a manual review step that was catching consistent errors the AI now handles automatically. Quantify where you can. And finally, token and cost analysis. If you ran this at scale or through an API, document the per-request cost and how your optimization affected it. This signals professional seriousness to enterprise clients and hiring managers who are paying API bills and care about this deeply. One important principle: start now. Don't wait until you have a finished project. Document your experiments as you run them. Keep a prompt journal. Save before and after versions. The documentation habit is something you build in real time. Trying to reconstruct it retroactively is much harder and produces worse artifacts. Your first few portfolio pieces will be rough. That's fine. They capture where you started. As your work improves, the contrast between early and later entries becomes part of the story your portfolio tells. And that story, clearly documented, is legitimately impressive. The job market for prompt engineering skills is still early and still messy. Job titles haven't standardized. You'll see AI prompt engineer, LLM specialist, AI content strategist, conversational AI designer, AI workflow engineer, and a dozen others that all overlap with the core skill set. Don't let the title confusion obscure the fact that the underlying capability is genuinely in demand across multiple industries. Let's map the career terrain by pathway rather than by job title, because that's more useful for navigation. The first pathway is the AI specialist track, a dedicated role within a tech company or AI lab for designing, testing, and optimizing AI systems. This is where deep technical knowledge matters most. Model architectures, fine-tuning, evaluation methodologies, RAG systems, agentic frameworks. Also the most competitive because you're in the same market as ML engineers and AI researchers. The second pathway, and currently the higher volume opportunity, is the domain expert AI integrator. Someone who brings deep knowledge of a specific field and applies AI tools to accelerate work in that field. A legal professional deeply fluent in AI-assisted research. A healthcare communicator designing clinically accurate AI content systems. A marketing professional running sophisticated AI-assisted content pipelines. The differentiator isn't pure technical depth, it's the combination of domain knowledge and AI fluency. That combination is rarer than either skill alone. The third pathway is the educator and communicator. Explaining AI systems clearly to non-technical audiences, executives, policymakers, healthcare workers, small business owners, is a genuine expertise gap growing more urgent as AI adoption accelerates. Communicate clearly, think in frameworks, translate technical nuance for non-technical audiences. The market is actively looking for this.